All right. Hello and welcome to a new episode of I Can Do. Really excited to be here today. We have another fantastic guest. Clarissa Burt is on the show with us today. We were just talking a few minutes ago before we hit the record button. And Clarissa is a very strong individual and really looking forward to her sharing her story. And there's so many things that she's putting out into the world as she is seeking to help so many people in a positive way. So, Clarissa, welcome to the show.
Oh, so good to see you, Ben. It's been a while coming, but we finally did it.
We finally did it. I appreciate your
We're
patience.
here.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I think like 1 year later, we're actually
Oh my
talking.
God.
Yeah,
Something like
a
Well,
lot
thanks
of
for
things happen. You're welcome.
Yeah.
It's great to see you. And I was telling you earlier, I do some public speaking coaching, and I want to hear more from you here. You know, there's always a question sometimes, and I don't know how you feel about this. Sometimes it's kind of hard to answer. It's like when somebody asks you, so what do you do? There's so many different places to begin, but I'd love for you to get started to share with the audience, what do
Yeah.
you do? And you can take it in whatever direction you want to go.
Yeah, I mean, basically in my life, I have lived in the limelight in some way, shape, or form. I was Mary Poppins in the kindergarten play, and right after I sang Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious and I got my first standing ovation at 5 years old, I was hooked. So I knew that I was going to be either on a stage or in front, hold my beer, give me the microphone, hold my beer, and I don't drink. So, it was just kind of one of those kind of things that I knew I loved. When I was a kid, there were 3 channels on TV, and Saturday morning was, movie morning. And so I was like into Ava Gardner and Rita Hayworth and the beautiful gowns and the dances and the singing. It really was what attracted me. So, fast forward a couple of years, we didn't have internet back in the day, but we had the Sears catalog that came along twice a year. It was fall, winter, and spring, summer. And I couldn't wait for the Sears catalog to get there. I wanted to take a look at the fashions, the models, the posing, the makeup, the hairdos, and all of that, right? So that was my little girl way of, really expressing and hoping that I could be these women one day. Of course, I went through the total ugly duckling period. I mean, yeah, I won't even bring those pictures up, but it was not pretty. It wasn't pretty. And then one day, things got a little better, and so I thought to myself, gee, I would love to model. I just would love to model. And that's kind of what happened. I started modeling. It went really well. I traveled, the world. I lived in Italy for about 30 years. It was just a lovely, I came home with magazine covers. I was on a lot of the runways around the world. And that was great, really great. Then that parlayed into making some movies. Made about 20 movies. One of them came to the United States called The Never Ending Story Part 2. I was the mean Queen Zaida in that movie. The movie didn't do so great, but I had a ball making it. And so that was the next step. And then, of course, the next step up from there is I wanted to be on camera talent. So while I was living in Italy and, my Italian was pretty well perfected, I now was working as on camera talent on Italian television. And then the next step after that was producing Italian television. So my last productions were 3-hour live broadcasts in prime time with 18 cameras as I was working not only behind the scenes, but I was also live out front. So they were great times. They were really, really good times. But there was always something in me that said, I just have a book in me and I need to get it written. So much like you, and on a speaking stage one day, I was up blabbing about something and somebody came to me and said, I need to write your book. We're going to do this book with you. And I went, you know what? And I have to thank Gary Krebs for that. An amazing individual, really, really smart guy. And he, is a New York City agent. And we wrote the book together. And it just happened to, we closed the deal with a New York City publisher 2 months after COVID hit. And that was kind of my first point. Okay, they see what's coming. They know that after a pandemic, stuff's going to be really uncomfortable for people. And I think that, we can really say now that we do have a loneliness epidemic. We do have a youth mental health crisis. I think we have an adult mental health crisis as well. I think people are hurting. I think people need help. They're looking for solace, assistance, guidance, and anything else that they can get to feel better about these really difficult and uncertain times that we're living in. And so people say, why did you write the book? Well, I wrote the book because I could see that there was a correlation between my mother in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, who used to say to me, don't take my picture. I come out horrible in pictures. I look awful. I need to lose weight and all the rest. That was my mother.
Oh, nice.
Okay, that was me right as I was doing Mary Poppins, but that was
Very
mom.
nice.
You know,
Yeah.
and mom's a lovely looking, beautiful woman. You know, really,
Mhm.
really pretty lady. I'm kind of thinking to myself, what is it that, I say, Mom, you're so smart. Oh, I'm not smart. Okay, Mom, you couldn't give Mom a compliment. My grandmother, beautiful woman, lovely lady, decides she needs to lose weight, didn't need to lose an ounce. Takes 2 diet pills one day, swallows them, perforates her esophagus, winds up 6 weeks in the hospital. And again, I'm looking at her and I'm going, you are so beautiful to me. I think that you two, the two ladies that, upon which, whose shoulders I stand, I think are some amazing human beings. They never saw it about themselves. Okay, well, now you can imagine the messaging that's trickling down to me, right?
Right.
Fast forward, I'm modeling, I'm with the 1% around the world, and some of the most beautiful creatures. And some of these girls as well were having difficulty with their self-esteem, toxic relationships, alcohol, drugs, whatever, bulimia, anorexia, whatever it was. And I say a few, I didn't say all, but I couldn't understand what the correlation was between mom in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and these girls on, the Valentino runway. And so, of course, the answer is lack of happy, healthy self-esteem. And therein really lies the reason why I wrote the book.
Mm. Well, that's a big leap, starting from 5 years old on a stage for a play to modeling to TV to writing a
Yep.
book to right now. A couple of questions, lots of questions actually. One, how long did it take for you to get into modeling? So, how old were you when you got started, and
Right.
what was that process like? You don't have to go into every detail,
I
but
graduated high school in New Jersey in 1977, and right after that, about 1979, about 78, late 78, I moved into New York City
okay,
because I had found a job in the city, and which I loved. I was down in the garment district on 6th Avenue and 23rd Street, and I was working in the garment district, believe it or not, for I was the assistant to the vice president or something. And of course, I was tall and thin, and I really wanted a model. And people said, well, you should be a model. You should be a model. And of course, me, what am I saying? Oh, I could never. What did I learn?
yeah,
I could never, right? And then I went, I thought to myself, well, what if I really could? I want it bad. I really do want this. I want it. So I tried. So the
mm,
test pictures took place, the text pictures that I shopped to there weren't that many agencies in the day, but I was taken by Elite and Wilhelmina. I chose Wilhelmina. And the rest really is history. They sent me to Paris first, and then I was off to Italy, where I stayed for a really, good. The better chunk of the 30 years was in Italy.
mm. So, what prompted you to start thinking, "What if?" That's something that's standing out to me, right? So, your
Yeah,
mom, another family member,
yeah.
but at some point in time, you're saying, "Well, what if?" Was it just curiosity? Was it a book that you read? What was it that got you over that hump
I
or hill, so to speak?
I really do think I owe it a lot to the people that prompted me. I
Mm,
think I owe it a lot because took me a long time before I could even say, not only to myself, but out loud to others, I really would like to be a model.
yeah,
You know, because that to me was just such a high standard. It was like, holy, and it was just crazy. The funny part of it is this: when I was living in Paris, I got over there and I got homesick. I really didn't do well in Paris, so I came home. I came back to New York City. I went to a temporary agency. I had all the skills to be a secretary, and they sent me up to the top floor at Revlon.
mm,
Can I just explain the pain? So here I am sitting at a desk. There's a corporate executive in an office somewhere. And I'm looking around then at all the pictures on the walls. And they are all the models that were in the Revlon campaigns. And I sat there, I walked into that office every day. I think I worked there about 5, 6 weeks as a temp. And I looked at these pictures every day and I went, you know what? I think it was that also that I was so angry with myself for not making it go the first time. And I
mm,
really felt as though I had burned that opportunity, right? And
yeah,
I didn't want to be cocky about it, but objectively looking at the pictures that I was doing, the test pictures and like kind of comparing them to what I saw on the walls, I was like, I know I could do that. I
hmm,
know I could be that. Go back. I made enough money the next year to scratch because it's expensive to live in the city. And as a secretary, you don't make that much. So I
hmm,
really scrounged to make enough money to get another plane ticket back to Europe. And this time I was going back to Italy, where everything went very, very well for me. And
nice.
about 3 years later, I was booked for 2 Revlon campaigns.
Really? Oh, that's great. So
Yes.
what I'm hearing then is, especially as we get to your book and
Yeah.
self-esteem,
Yeah.
there's a lot of different peaks and valleys when it comes to our self-esteem, how we view ourselves. You took a step back, but that position there was just so challenging and frustrating
Yeah.
because you're like, what am I doing? And I think that happens to a lot of people sometimes where, I don't know, maybe we take it for granted, or maybe like what we were talking about before we hit the record button, we reach an upper limit where it's like, man, this feels so uncomfortable. I want to
Yes.
go back down to this
It felt
default mode.
impossible. It felt impossible.
Impossible. Yeah.
It
So,
was so lofty as a wish, as a want, as a desire, and there were so many girls trying to get to that 1%. And you'd look around and go, well, who the heck am I to think that I could ever, And I think again, it was the first try. If at first you don't succeed, try again. Never say never. And always believe. And I think that there are a lot of the sayings that I think that I could pull. Again, also rejection is redirection. I don't know if I felt rejection along the way, but I definitely know I was kind of rejecting the thought that I could ever. So I really had to rework the mindset on that. And I went back. When I went back to Italy, I was ready. I had lost a couple of pounds. That was a little bit of baby weight that I was happy to lose. I mean, I looked fine, but because I was always tall and thin. But the little bit that I lost was, put me into the runway girl category, which was great. So it put me into it's just the mindset. I mean, we hear of it all the time.
yeah.
We hear about it all the time. Ben, when I was a kid, we had 3 bookstores back in the day: Borden's, Walden Books, and then Barnes and Noble. And in the back,
That's right.
there was a little section, right? It was called Self-Help. And it was all the way in the back. You had to really look for it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there were only about 40 books on there, but I lived for those books. Lived for those books because I didn't have direction. My familiar tribe didn't really give me. They gave me a lot to think about. Let's just put it that way. And so, because this is not about parent bashing, we don't do that here. And so, now when you walk into Barnes and Noble, again, that I'm proud to say my book is still on the shelves after 2.5 years.
Yeah.
It's personal development section is rows upon rows upon rows upon rows upon rows of books. And it's $1 billion industry. So what does that tell you?
Yeah.
People are always looking for, how to better themselves. And a lot of times you don't even know you need to better yourself. You just know that the pain has gotten to be so bad you can't take one more day.
Yeah.
And my book starts out, chapter 1, I call it a regime. So the self-esteem regime is an organized way of doing things. Regime is an organized way of doing things. 12 chapters, each beginning with a re-word. The first chapter is release. The second is rebuild. The third is responsibility. And so each lives in a microcosm that will gently guide you to the next. You're going to read about self-esteem, Ben, and with my book, you're going to do self-esteem. And that was important to me because it's a manual, a mission, and a movement, the self-esteem regime.
I like that. So would you say then you're basically right? You were writing this book throughout all these years and maybe didn't even see it happening. So
yes.
Going back to that office and then, leaving there, would that fall into the category of like release? And then once you got into the modeling, I want to ask you a couple questions about that. So did you have any setbacks with self-esteem? Like, how did you handle that? Because, your bio, you were a supermodel. So there's some distinction between a model and a supermodel. Tell us about that too. So
I think that really falls under, chapter 5 being reaffirm. I really had to reaffirm with myself that I could do this, that I look like these girls. And I affirmed that to myself. Next is reinvent. I reinvented the whole thing. Didn't work the first time. Take that lesson. What didn't work that first time? And what's going to work this time? I had grown up a couple of more years. I knew I wasn't going to be as homesick. I was hungry. Just like Les Brown says, you got to be hungry, right? and I was hungry for it. I really was. So it was a reinvention time. And then it was a reinforcement time that reinforced the belief in myself and the belief that this is really what I wanted to do, because when you leave, you're on the other side of the world. You're living on the other side of the world. You have no family nearby. There were no cell phones back in the day. You couldn't call home every time you were having a moment. you work through stuff. I know it sounds stoic, but it was like that then. Now they drive. They used to now. The models are sold on right there on their websites. We had to walk the cities. We had maps in our hands. We carried our portfolio around the town. It was a whole different thing, and you really needed to want it. And again, a lot of times you get to these appointments, and it wasn't easy. You spent the whole of your day in the subway and finding your way around these cities that you didn't know in order to get to a client or to get to a photographer or to get anywhere that people needed to see you, the runway shows. And a lot of times you did it for naught because you weren't right for the part. So again, the rejection piece of that is another part of what I was doing, right? It was already difficult enough to get to where I got. Now you have to deal with the rejection, right? And so that was another really interesting piece of things. And then, I got repeat, I got rebound, I've got, reinvent. There's all kinds of things that, we could refer back to. But yeah, it was, they were good times.
So how long were you modeling then? You said 30 years?
What? No. I started in 84 and I was basically out of modeling by 89, I think.
Gotcha.
Because that's when 89 is when the TV started. So 88, I think I stopped modeling.
So when did you know, okay, it's time for me to move on?
When it wasn't fun anymore. When it wasn't exciting anymore. When doing the runway was just throwing on some more clothes and walking down the runway. When, showing up at a photo shoot was like, ugh. Yeah. They got to put more makeup on me. It's hot. I'm tired. I don't want, because I did this every day for 6 years, basically. Yeah. I needed a new challenge. I knew that I had other dreams, and that was okay. Next is my acting. I want to act. And then I realized along the way, because as I was gaining notoriety in Italy, they were inviting me onto television shows, to talk about my life or whatever. And I realized, wow, I really love this TV thing. This is really cool. I love the movies as well. It just is, it's just a lot of sitting around, and the memorizing thing was not my gig. It wasn't my vibe. I wanted to be, I love a live audience. I love a live, and a lot of the shows I did, most of the TV shows I did were live. So I was weaned on live television, and I was weaned to the minute. Like I knew, people say to me, my God, that was exactly 20 minutes. How did you do that? Yeah. You got three and a half minutes to talk. Okay. And with 3 minutes and 29 seconds, I'm done because you get that timing into your head. So it was just a blast. I mean, I had the time of my life. I really, really did. Then that started to get a little old.
Okay. Let me hit the pause button there because I want to ask a couple of questions. And anyone who's listening then, you said modeling you did that for about 5 years and then you stopped when it wasn't fun. I read a book years ago called Halftime. And it just kind of talked about, people like to reinvent themselves and at the halftime of our life and things like that. One of the things that always stood out to me in that book was this idea of drilling for oil. So this gentleman was talking about before, he made a decision or a big leap or something like that, he would kind of test the waters out. So after those 5 years, when you said, okay, I'm not having fun anymore, were you already testing the waters out with TV and movies, or was, how does someone navigate that where on one hand, somebody may be thinking, what if I'm leaving too early? What if I haven't peaked? On the other hand, it's like, well, I'm not having any fun. Is it just taking some time off? What recommendations would you give to someone who's trying to make that decision, maybe from one career to the next, or just something in a smaller scale?
Well, I think that, I once I had each one of them perfected in the sense that I knew that I had been successful. The modeling, I was on every major runway, every major designer, from New York to Rome to Paris to London to Japan. You couldn't get any higher than the people I walked for. I mean, they were the most important designers in the world. Came home with like 250 magazine covers. I had beauty campaigns with Dior, Carita, with Revlon, with Orlane. So that, you can only have so many of those. The 250 magazine covers, we can't get I mean, you can get more, but it's like, what's next? So I perfected this. Now I really want to do movies. Okay, great. I did about 20 different movies, but there was only one of them that was a Warner Brothers worldwide release. And Never Ending Story Part 2's Aida the Mean Queen. And so I went, okay, I did that. I'm not going to win an Oscar, but ding, 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 ding. I got to the big leagues with the movie thing. Next, TV. What am I going to do on TV? I worked with all the biggest and the best television shows that there were. They gave me even my own television show on a smaller channel, and so I knew that even there, I was. Then that kind of got okay. What's next? Producing. Okay, now I want to produce my own shows, and so I did that. I took the Miss Universe pageant. It was we had 3-hour live broadcasts in prime time with 18 live cameras, 2,000 people sitting in water in front of a castle in Calabria. You don't get any bigger as a production than that. You just don't. So, even that I did that for 5 years, and I went, okay, I'm done. And I was only in my 40s then, and I went, you know what? Then I had, products on Home Shopping Network and, QVC. And I went, okay, we did that, and then it was time to come home. And when I came home after the 30 years, I wanted to come home. My sister had her children. My grandmother was in her last years. I was living all the glory, but I was missing out with, what was the core of my myself. I wanted to come home. And that's why I'm in Phoenix. So grandmom then passed, the kids all grew up, all of that. And so 5 years ago, as I was turning 60, I went, you know what? I want to start my online multimedia platform, TV, podcast, digital magazine. And that's what I do. But in the meantime, the book happened.
That is so inspiring.
Yeah. It's really cool. And, people most, they say at 60, you're supposed to be thinking about, retirement. And I don't know. It's just not in the cards for me in the moment. I can't even think about waking up and not having, a full day ahead of me or nothing to do. I think a lot of people also at this age think that there isn't much else to do. And there's so much more to do,
Yeah. Well, I'm really impressed because, fear of missing out is somewhat of a new term. I think it was coined in the early 2000s. That doesn't sound like something that you were fearful of as well, which I think is really amazing. I think people just have a hard time, we can, and maybe that's where the self-esteem comes in. We can definitely talk more about that too, where, okay, somebody says, well, you can't leave this type of career or this type of job. What will happen if you do? Or, just kind of wait a little bit longer or wait until you do retire.
Yeah.
Tim Ferriss talks about this on his podcast sometimes, like, experimenting like with mini retirements. That's not what you're doing, but you're experimenting with a lot of different careers, and which I think I love. I think it's fascinating, and being able to do that. I'm curious. Tell us about where this self-esteem did modeling. How did that impact you with speaking, where you're comfortable modeling? A lot of people are uncomfortable in their skin, much less walking in front of people. And one of the greatest fears that people have is talking or speaking, public speaking. So what were you doing to craft or to sharpen that skill where you got to that point where it was like, hey, this is where I am? Or did you just naturally have the fear and you just turned that into fuel?
A lot of the time, especially the television years, there was, at the very beginning, there was a little bit more fear because you knew that everything you were doing was live TV. Millions of people might be watching, so no pressure there, Ben. But I think really the most important thing that I came to realize when it came to the public speaking stages was it wasn't up to me to decide whether what I was going to say was going to be impactful or not. I knew that I had a message and that there potentially was going to be at least one person that it was going to help in the audience. It was up to the audience to decide. And so, when you are living in the fear of the stage, then you're living a more egotistic reality. You're more worried about you, and you're worried about your fear, and you're worried about, what they're going to think of you. And it's none of your business what they think of you. What is your job is to make sure that what you're about to say, you are absolutely sure is going to be impactful and incisive, educative and informative. That's your only job. Of course, you need to take a shower that day and put on a dress. Put on a suit. You want to be presentable. But your job is, your job is to do that. And when you are locked and loaded and absolutely secure that that part of what you showed up to do is, airtight, then you just go on and you have to do, not because you're coming more from a place of service. I know that every time I open my mouth and I talk about self-esteem, I know there's no doubt that I've helped somebody, no doubt, because of the different topics. The self-esteem, people mostly think as, don't compare yourself to anybody else. It's so much more than that. Self-esteem goes so broad and so deep. I mean, we could talk about imposter syndrome. We can talk about, generational trauma. We can talk about betrayal traumas. We can talk about, an 87-year-old man is going through different things with his self-esteem than a 14-year-old girl is. A woman that, has just gone through a mastectomy because she's got cancer and is losing her hair is going through a whole different set, right? So again, self-esteem is something that, is, your perception of self. It's who you bring to the table. Also, you need to have a really good, strong value system. I ask people, so give me your top 4 values. What are they? And a lot of people, Ben, really has struggled with that. They don't have that locked and loaded. Here's what I say. I take the high road: honesty, integrity, gratitude, and honor. I will guarantee you that I will come to the table every time with those 4 things. Now, it doesn't always make me the most popular person in the room. I may not be, the most popular person at the table, but that you're going to get honesty, integrity, a lot of gratitude for everybody that showed up, and you're going to get honor. And so that's important to me. And I think that that's another really huge piece of self-esteem. People, as I said to you before, a lot of especially on social media, and we see this with our kids, right? And there's a lot of that perception and comparing. The grass is always greener on the other side. Well, here's the deal. Is the grass always greener on the other side, or is the grass greener where you water it? All right. So take care of what's yours. Take care of yourself. Be worried about everybody else. Or is the grass really greener on the other side, or is it AstroTurf? Is it fake? Is it plastic? Is it just your perception of what you think it is? So, and by the way, everybody deserves success, and I'm thrilled for those that have it. But stop comparing yourself, because you know what? The good Lord knew exactly what he was doing when he made you, and it is not on you to be second guessing him. So be really happy that you get to be you.
Yeah, I love that. There's so many great things, and I appreciate you sharing that. One, when you said with TV, you had a job to do, if there's one person that you can influence, that's something I've said to myself with preaching. You can second guess yourself. Not everybody's going to like the message. And some people have talked about this too. Speaking sometimes is almost like painting, where, an artist is going to paint and people are going to examine it. And some people are going to say, man, that's fantastic. It looks amazing. Other people are going to say, oh, like, what is that? So the artist has to be willing to put themselves out there and to do the work and to do as much as they can to be fully prepped. I want to talk more about self-esteem here. So hold those thoughts. One last question with TV in particular. How did you prep so when the lights came on, you can hit 3:29 or 3.5 minutes, that when you have thousands of people looking at you? Tell us, what was your prep like?
Well, obviously hair and makeup is the first thing that goes on, and then you've got your costumes, or the people that are dressing you for whatever it is. This is when you're actually doing a show, as opposed to just being an interview on someone else's show. And so there's a lot of that's going on. Just the fact that it's live, Ben, is one of those kind of things that you do absolutely run on adrenaline. And the adrenaline is what keeps you going. It keeps you up. It keeps you high. I mean, it keeps you on top of your game. It's one of those kind of things that makes you want to do your absolute best in every moment. You may or may not have had rehearsal. There was really not any rehearsal, and when I was on television, the shows that I'm referring to were in the very, very beginning, they were really more variety shows. So there was always a song that I did. A lot of those are on, YouTube right now. If you YouTube me, you can go back and see me, 30 years ago singing, Bye Bye Baby or whatever the heck I was doing. And so, they would just go, Clarissa, here we go. The whole studio was set, and then you sang your song, and it was taped. The song usually it was either live or taped, depending on the show. And it was the coolest thing on the planet. It's just awesome. And then the other part of the show was something where we had like a newscast. And so I was the one that was sitting at the desk when around me were all the news, the people that were in the field, and they were like imitators. And, so it was a fun, it was a Sunday variety show. But it was also really great because it's your creative expression as well. And so and I can still talk about it and feel the joy about it. It was so darn cool. It was so darn cool to tell you. But it's really, I think the answer to the question is the adrenaline. It's, and part of that is the prep. It's waking up at 5 a.m, getting into the chair at 6, being ready by 9. It's just one of those kind of things that it's not for everybody. Because it's, it's not, it's fun, but it's work, you still are, tired sometimes. And again, you do it because you love it so much. And when I say to you, it wasn't fun anymore, that's your clue. And that's your cue. Time to move on. There's like when they say there's another book in, or there's a book in you, or I knew that along the way there were going to be natural progressions, from the model to the actress, from the actress to on camera, from on camera to producer, from producer to speaker, like all of that, right? Whatever order you want to put them in, and entrepreneur, solopreneur, it's all there. It's all there.
Yeah. You mentioned egotism, and especially like with the component of fear, and that's really stood out to me as well. What recommendations do you have? We can start segueing more into the idea of self-esteem, and I definitely want to hear more about how you define self-esteem. And even with imposter syndrome, you're doing things, you have done things, you're currently doing things that a lot of people would feel, no, there's no way I could ever do that. So do you have more thoughts with the idea with the fear and egotism? Because I liked what you said there about when we start worrying about what other people are thinking, that's often more of our ego, and that's going to cause us to miss out. Yeah. What other thoughts do you have with that, or anything else you want to share with that?
Well, it's really always very difficult when, the thing that I underline here is you really are going to have to come at this with courage. Okay. Because a lot of the times the breakout is the most difficult, breaking out of the tribe, breaking away from the friends group, breaking away and moving on, breaking away from, the family, because people are going to naysay and they're going to get their noses out of joint. It's the minute you start up leveling, when the minute you start, really living your life and your passion and serving yourself and others best, people are going to get a little hurt. People are going to get, again, nose out of joint. People are going to, want to ask you, well, who do you think you are? You're going to get a lot of that. And I'm not saying you have to be a jerk about it, but, maybe it's not who I think I am. It's who I'm becoming, and so, and that's, and I love you, and I'll always be home for Christmas. Thanks, Mom and Dad. But, now this is, this is who I am now. And this is, it's that, when you see the light of the, I say that, this is what I say, that, you hear about going the extra mile. That extra mile isn't the longest mile, and it's dark and it's scary and it's blustery and it's raining and you don't have an umbrella and there's a wolf, like hiding behind the trees and you thought you had your besties with you, but they left you miles behind. When you turn around, you're on your own. There's nobody, but you do see there's that little teeny weeny light all the way down at the end. And man, every step you take, it gets bigger, bolder, brighter, and more beautiful. And that's what keeps you going. It's that light at the end of the tunnel, because you know that the courage, the persistence, the perseverance, the fear that you plow through is all going to be worth it at the end of the day. And that's what you have to keep top of mind. So don't think for a second that you're not going to be in difficulty, that you're not going to be afraid, that you might fail. Again, first attempt in learning, right? Fail, first attempt in learning, because nobody ever learned something real good the first time. My first runway was horrible. My first test pictures weren't great. The first time I sang, I probably wasn't the great. All of that, right? You learn as you go, you learn as you grow. And so give yourself the grace to do that. Be kind with yourself as you're learning and growing, and be okay with failing, because failing is almost a little bit of a celebration, because you're one step closer to success.
Yeah.
So, yay.
That's fantastic. There's so many good things there. I had mentioned to you in an email about playing a game Clarissa suggests that was part of the live show that you had, I think, in Italy. So I want to get some suggestions from you. What do you suggest? We know that self-esteem is such a big deal. What do you suggest when it comes to handling, growing our self-esteem and social media?
Oh, on social media, I think that you have to just stay authentic, be you, don't be anybody that you're not. I have to give a lot of kudos to the Dove Self-Esteem Project, because for years they have been advocating and championing for young girls. So last year they came out in April, Women's Month, they came out with this hashtag no filters, hashtag turn your back. And it was we're talking 8, 9, 10, 11-year-old girls and up that are using these beauty filters and glam filters and all the things that are making them look like they're 10, 15, 20 years older than they really are. And when the message is, I'm not good enough the way I am, I'm not pretty enough the way I am. And of course, young girls love the word, I'm not sexy enough, as I am. I don't look like a Kardashian. And so there's these awful pressures that young girls are putting on themselves to be things and look the way that they wouldn't normally. And so I really love Dove Self-Esteem and the work that they've done on this. It's amazing. It's really, stand up job to be, really strong messaging to younger girls, especially, that you are really, truly beautiful. Going back to, God didn't make any mistakes. He knew exactly what he was doing, and you should be really glad you get to be you. That's a hard sell for a 12-year-old. That's a hard sell for 11-year-old, because, there are mean girls, there are bullies, our kids are more susceptible now to I don't remember bullying when I was a kid. I really don't. Little stuff, but nothing to write home about. Now they're being attacked right and left online. And we have, when I say youth mental health crisis, we have half of the population that is either depressed, anxious, thinking of committing suicide, or have committed suicide. Now, I know that suicide is an old word, and today they use, unalive. But I like to say the author of your own demise at that point. So suicide, unalive or author of your own demise, it's all semantics, but the end result is always the same, right? So it's really very alarming what we're experiencing with our youth these days. And so, yeah, that social media and comparing, the perception of what everybody else has got that you don't got. You got to be really careful about that and drive that home to the girls.
Yeah. How are you navigating social media?
I just put stuff out about the shows I do, interviews that I do, and hopefully if people are listening to it, that they're getting some really good information about, because look, self-esteem doesn't discriminate. And when I say that, I mean, it doesn't discriminate in the sense it doesn't matter color, creed, man, female, everybody's going to go through it. And one of the most important things, I think, is it's our sacred duty. And when I say sacred, I mean, living in reverence for ourselves as well, right? To do the work, to continue along the path of our self-improvement and our personal development. I talk about standing strong in your stead, much like a well-rooted tree. But here comes life. And so as it ebbs and flows, and oh my goodness, here comes a death in the family, an illness, a sickness, a betrayal, a divorce, a separation, a breakup, whatever it all may be. Here comes the storm. And in that storm, you may lose a leaf or two, or potentially a branch. I don't know. But if you have the tools in the shed on any given day at any given time, you're not going to be uprooted with the storm and transported away. So this is where I say the more you can do the work on self-esteem, my mantra being, I want to be a better person tomorrow than I am today. I will do everything in my power to make sure that that happens. And, my circle is smaller, as I said, my circle is smaller, but my peace is gigantic. And that's, I think, is a really important part of all of this. Living in service to yourself and to others, but obviously, and that again, Ben, is going to be a hard one. That's going to be a hard one because when you do start down this path, people are going to fall away, or there's going to be redirection. There's going to be a reassessment, if you will. Some existing relationships may take on a little bit of it. You might talk to them every day. You might talk to them once a week. You're going to understand the new placement, if you will. And as you start to understand the fact that you're dealing with your inner child and you have to start reparenting yourself, because a lot of us did not come from I don't know who came from perfect parents, quite frankly, because everybody I talk to, right? It doesn't come with an instruction booklet or a manual, right? So, we give them a lot of love and grace as well. And they only knew what they were taught, right? So, you have to also know, when I talk about the toxic stops right here. The toxic stops here. And now it's on me, again, my sacred duty to be the best I can possibly be and have those tools in the shed on any given day that I need to navigate this thing called life.
What do you suggest as a first step for someone to build self-esteem?
Yeah, I think the first step is to realize something's off, something ain't right, something hurts, something feels bad. And definitely, one of the first things I think is drawing boundaries. And people have a real hard time with boundaries. They think you got to get mad and upset and pissed off. And no, it's ease, joy, and glory. And you just, what makes you feel good? What doesn't make you feel good? And I'm not saying, I'm not one of those kind of people that says, every little thing that triggers you. You also have to buck up a little bit because this thing is called life. But, if it's something that is really blatantly toxic, if somebody says something to you that whatever it may be, hey, those jeans, make your butt look fat. I don't know. I'm making it up as I go. And that really triggers you because you've been trying to lose weight for 100 years and it's just not happening. I'm making this up as I go.
Yeah.
You might say, hey, can I just talk to you for a second? Because I want you to just know how that really hits me hard. It just hits me kind of hard. And I'm just would you mind just giving me some grace on that? Because if somebody says to you, oh my gosh, I am so sorry. I know it came out wrong. I didn't mean to say it that way. And I absolutely, apologize. Will it never happen again? Well, now you're probably in a relationship that's viable. If somebody says to you instead, oh, come on, get over yourself. You're always in a bad mood. You're the one. You're probably in a toxic relationship. And so I think, we're all smart enough to know that how other people make us feel. And therein lies the conundrum. That's where the boundaries are, because we want to be feeling the best we can possibly be in order to be the best we can possibly be. And that's on us. That is our reparenting. That is, again, our sacred duty. That is our, we are always, we are work in progress. We are in evolution, in constant evolution. And so the first thing I think is absolutely the boundaries. I talk about the 4 pillars of self-esteem, which are really important too, which is look good, feel good, be good, and greater good. If you're not looking good and you're looking in the mirror and you're not feeling it, there are things that you can do about that. We all know what they are, right? We work out, we can eat better, we drink more water, we take our supplement, whatever that means. Look good, feel good, diet, exercise, nutrition, wellness. Take the time for yourself, take some self-care, again, eat right. It kind of, some of them kind of overlap a little bit, but you kind of get the idea, right? You got to really be taking care of yourself. Be good. Relationship, leadership, finances, all the things that are businesses, and all the things that are important for our sustenance. We need to, lead. We need to be in relationship with people, at home, with people at work. We need to make money. We need to bring it home. And we just need to be okay with all of that. We need to know that that is a working, viable part of our lives. And then the other part is the greater good, which is tithing, paying it forward, giving back, volunteering, and making sure that you understand that even if you don't, and a lot of people don't right now, people are like, geez, Clarissa, I really don't even have an extra. Not about money. It could be about a smile. It could be about a compliment. It could be about holding the door open for somebody. It could be about helping the lady down the stairs with a baby carriage. It could be getting up in public transportation for someone who might be pregnant or the elderly. You know, the old-fashioned, traditional, just do the right things. You know, it's not that hard to live a greater good. So, you know, being kind is foremost. It's up front and foremost for me.
Yeah, a lot of great things there. My next question may overlap a little bit with this one. You mentioned the idea of a lot of people being lonely. In Denmark, they have what's called the Human Project. It's something at one of the
Yes.
libraries. You've heard about that.
Yes.
What do you suggest? Well, for the audience, so it's people can meet
Yes.
up at a library and someone can share their story. It's about like 30
Mhm.
minutes, I think, per
Yep.
person or something like that.
Yeah.
And just heard about that. I was like, man, I really like that. What do you suggest for those who may be listening?
Well, I think that, you know, in order, first of all, how many billions of people are there in the world? This is, you know,
7 or 8, something like that. Yeah.
for a lot of people, it's just, you know, it's just getting up and getting out of the house, I think. You know, sometimes it's as simple as sitting in a park. You know, I mean, something's going to happen. Something's going to give. There are going to be mothers and baby carriages and kids and other elderly or whatever it may be. There are people everywhere you want to go. People, you know, in today's day and age are a little more, I think, afraid of people. They don't trust people. You know, there's a lot of the, you know, the scamming and all that stuff that's going along. So you really need to be, you know, mindful and careful of who you're giving your phone number to or who you're, you know, going to be hanging out with. But I think that, yeah, the library is a really great idea. Meetup.com. You can get on there and find people of all kinds, you know, all kinds. Do you want to climb a mountain? Do you want to be in a book club? Do you want to be in, you know, I don't know, a swim club? You know, like there are all kinds of elderly people. Like there's places to go that are much easier to find with, you know, with the internet than we ever had. You know, and so volunteering, you know, there are churches you can volunteer. There are libraries that you can volunteer at. You know, they always have programs for courses or classes or things that you can offer up or, you know, and sometimes it's just the first, you know, it's that first smile and a hello, you know. I think a lot of people are afraid to be the first to do that anymore. And so to spark that conversation and to be mindful, be careful, but be open.
Yeah, love that. I was telling my wife Nikki that you were going to be on the show today, and I said, "Hey, she was in Never Ending Story 2," and she's like, "Oh, really? I remember that movie." And I was like, "Yeah, she was the Wicked Queen," and she's like, "Yes." So I want to go back and I want to get another suggestion from you. You said in passing, maybe 20, 30 minutes ago, you know, you didn't win an Oscar, but you did 20 movies, right? Never Ending Story is one of the biggest ones. What do you suggest for someone who has had success like that, maybe not in the movies, but closing that chapter and moving to the next one? I think that's hard where, you know, you've had so many chapters that have closed. You have been the one seemingly to close them on purpose, not having fun. I'm ready for something new. What do you suggest, though, for someone who's like, okay, well, I've done a podcast for 10 years, or I've written some books, and now it's time for me to reinvent myself? I guess more specifically, if I'm saying anything or trying to get to, is to just say, okay, it's time to let it go. What do you suggest?
Let what go?
That chapter in their life. So for you, like those 20
So when
movies.
it's time to move on to the next chapter, you mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
You feel it. You know it. It's like you just know. Which is probably going to be the chapter, the name of my next book. You just know, but you just know. You just know. You know when it's time. You know when you're when you're starting to lag around it, when it's not bringing you as much fun or as much joy, and that's only you. That is your psyche telling you there's something else you need to be doing. There's something else, you know, probably where you can be more insightful or incisive, doing what's next, and that's what I had found along the way as well. I couldn't be a model forever. I didn't want to be an actress forever. I didn't want to be on camera talent forever. I really didn't want to produce forever. I didn't want, you know, I wrote a book. It's great, my book, you know, but now what's next? So the idea is now I'm taking the book and creating retreats and events so that people can come in and actually live with me, look good, feel good, be good, and greater good, and bring in the experts around each one of those 4 pillars that will help us take a deeper dive on all of that.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's going to be awesome.
That's really cool.
It's very, very cool. It's very, very cool. So you see how there are always spin-offs. If you're looking for an opportunity, there's a spin-off. If you've been working an office job for all these years and you're looking for the way out, obviously don't quit, until, you're feeling pretty confident that you're going to be able to make, a good living with what's next. But start working on what's next, with the hours in the evening, hours on the weekend, if it's a hobby. A lot of people have turned hobbies into gajillion-dollar businesses, just, do what makes your heart sing. Do what makes your heart sing.
Yeah. Yeah. That's fantastic.
Truly.
No, I love that. And I love the idea of the retreats and things like that. I think that's fantastic.
So good.
What do you suggest outside of your book, obviously, with respect to other book recommendations?
I love, I go back to Think and Grow Rich. I think that's a really, really good one. The Power of the Subconscious Mind is always a really, really good one. I love Dispenza's, is it The Natural Way? I think it's called.
I haven't heard that one.
Joe Dispenza's Becoming Supernatural is a really, really good one. So yeah. And then I love another book by the name of Clarity and Connection that I really, really love a lot. So I'm always, if I'm doing it, reading anything, or if I am listening to anything, again, it's always, what can I, it's taking time from my day. I might be in the car or whatever else, but I want to make sure that if I'm driving from Phoenix to LA, those 6 hours are, infused with really powerful learning. Because again, as I said before, we are a work in progress and we are, constant evolution. And in order to be in constant evolution, we have to be continually learning. So that's really important to me.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
You have so much passion, which I really love. And clearly you're enjoying your life. What habits, what are you doing to keep this energy up? I'm curious with that. You got a lot of things going on. I know you love. Yeah. Can you share, like, what else is going on? How are you maintaining all of this?
Yeah, it's a really good question. Well, I do make sure that I get the proper amount of sleep. That's really, really important for me. So I have at least the 8. I wake up. I'm up usually 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. So I do get up early. I go to bed early, but I get up early. I love those early magical, moments in the morning where it's just so quiet. It's so quiet. I can hear the coyotes out back, but outside of that, the coyotes are out. But it's just really, really great to wake up, and then I'm grateful. I'm immediately grateful for something. So whatever that is, I thank, God for something immediately. What a great night's sleep. Thank you so much for that. Or right now I'm thanking God for air conditioning. I can promise you that, because it's hot. Thank you for my health. Thank you for good health care. Thank you for my family. Thank you for a full pantry. Thank you for clean running water. Thank you for, there's all kinds of things that we need to be grateful for. We need to be more focused on what is good than what really is not good at the moment. Stay really focused on keeping your energy and your vibration high. That's really, really important. I know what I can and cannot eat, what my body type is, what my blood type is. So I know that I'm really good, because if I eat heavy things like meat, I don't eat meat. I'm not a meat eater. I wasn't a meat eater when I was 5. So, I know that there are certain, I make sure that I'm, I stay true to, to that. What I put in, everything, it's a lot of it is what you put in. And then in the book, I have something called the Daily Demons. There's Clarissa's Corner, and then there are the Daily Demons. And those Daily Demons, how they do.
Tell us what you mean by that.
The daily demons are always going to want to come back in and be, just tell you can't, be really negative with you. And, who do you think you are? And you could never, and all the things that I used to think. Well, sometimes they come back in. I'm not going to lie. They come back in and I go, you know what? You're 65 now. And, you are getting older, and, things are, and I go, you know what? Sorry, not today. Not today, Satan. Go away. It's just not going to happen. So, I really, sometimes I still have to, shush them away, and I do. But, and that doesn't take as long. It used to take me days and weeks, and now it's just like a fleeting thought. So that's really important. Again, catch yourself in your messaging. Your subconscious is talking to you all the time, and it will only come back to you with what you feed it. It's the same thing as thought is energy, and energy is thought. So if you're putting that thought out into the universe, and you're saying, universe, why me? Well, it's going to answer you, why you? So you need to be, universe, I get it, got the message. What do I need to know now? What do I need to learn? Can you show me? Can you please, direct me into the right, the proper direction?
Yeah.
Just be really careful about, the wording.
Yeah.
Here's another one around wording. You hear people say a lot, and people say a lot, I am enough, you are enough, we're enough, everybody's enough, right? And people think that they're saying something really good. Until one day I decided to look up the definition of enough. And the definition of enough is only as much as is required. Only as much as is required. So I thought, well, God, just the word enough isn't enough. So here's the new mantra. I am so much more than enough. Golly, am I so much more than enough. In the book, we talk about mirror therapy. And I learned that through Louise Hayes' works, and I learned it through Jack Canfield's work, the other half of Chicken Soup for the Soul, with Mark Victor Hansen. And I used it in my book because I wasn't good enough for them. It's good enough for me, right? It's the most impactful exercise I think anyone could ever do. It's really
mirror therapy.
Really impactful. Yeah. Because there are two ways to approach a mirror. One is when you're looking, at the mirror and you're preening. And then when you're looking into the mirror, and that's when you're screening, right? Like you're looking into your eyes and it's going down into your soul. And this is where you get to be your own rah-rah session. The things that, you kind of would like to hear, but nobody else is telling you, just sit down, sit in front of a mirror and tell yourself. And when you start to say, you know what, Clarissa, you're looking darn good today. I got to tell you, I really love this new lip color on you. That shirt, I love the shirt too. What a great color on you. You look really good. Now, I also want to say, I do forgive you. And I forgive you for the time that, but I really want to give you kudos for that presentation. I know it wasn't easy to get up in front of 300 people, but you did, and you knocked it out of the ballpark, girlfriend. Good on you. So these are the kinds of things that, look, it looks weird. It feels weird. It sounds weird. You're going to want nobody else in the house when you're doing this. You're probably going to start with 1 minute, start with the 1 minute, and then build up, because it's going to be, sometimes people, I had an intern that was working with me. I had her do the exercise. She couldn't do it. She taped it. She should get into the mirror. She could get to the mirror, but she couldn't talk. She couldn't get the words out. And it was really an interesting case study that some people just don't love themselves at all and can't get to the point of saying, I like you to themselves. And some people just downright break out and cry. So love yourself, give yourself grace. You're going through that reparenting piece that I talk about. You're taking things into your own hands. It was nobody else's fault. You were given the path that you were supposed to be on. The almighty universe, source, divine knew exactly what they were doing. Trust that and work on yourself to be the better, a better person more than you are today. And I promise you, it'll all fall into place.
Yeah. Those are some good exercises to definitely think about. Clarissa, I don't think you'll ever be able to retire. I don't think retirement is in your cards.
Hey, but it is a reword, retire. It's that'll be the next book. That'll be the last chapter of my next book.
Well, I read a book called The Psychology of Money, which is a really great book, by the way. I love books. So anyway, what he was talking about, the things that we use today, IRAs, 401ks, even the idea of retirement, they're really not that new. Maybe one generation, but a couple generations ago, the idea of retirement really wasn't even around. It was, no, we're just going to keep on working. And so I wonder too, if that scares people or if that adds fear to people not taking that next opportunity to reinvent themselves or to stay in a situation because, well, I don't know if I do this. And I think you're right. Obviously, you have to have wisdom with it and you have to pay the bills and things like that. But, we get so stuck sometimes on, I'm 65 or I'm 70 or 55, whatever the case may be. But no, I don't think you're going to retire. And as
Yeah,
I think about it,
it
why
really isn't.
retire? We're always going to have something to offer and
Yeah.
something to give. And that idea of constant creativity and, you know, different things that are out there that we can do to help people out. So
Before you go, I just want to leave your listeners with this, and this is one that I love, and it's important. Loyalty is when I have your back behind your back.
hmm,
I think that we really need to take a deeper dive into what is living in integrity with those
hmm,
around us, and being honest and living in integrity and being loyal. Loyalty is one of those kind of things that I have found along the way seems to be kind of glossed over many times. People just don't think that it's an important thing. When you take someone else's heart into your hands, you are taking on a huge responsibility. When you say I love you and when you say I will be true to you, people believe that. If you're in an unhappy relationship and that's not working out for you, you need to come up and say, I'm in an unhappy relationship, I need out. But being dishonest about it is just never the way. And from the men out there, always be the man that you would want your daughter to marry.
yeah. Thank you, Clarissa.
You're welcome.